you're going to be doing the same steps in any case. I try to like to write them like this because when I'm finding my common denominators, it's a little easier for me to see what's happening. But really, if you write them horizontally or vertically, it's whatever you prefer. But in this case, we notice that we already have a common denominator, and that is 8. Because we have an 8 in the bottom for both fractions, we just keep it in the answer. And then we have 3 minus 1. Now, in the past, I've been actually writing 3 minus 1, but I think we've been doing this long enough, you know that you're just subtracting the numerators. 3 minus 1 is 2. All right, so then we look and see, is this the final answer? Well, we could write it down. It is the correct answer, but we notice that we can simplify this because I can divide the top by 2, and I can also divide the bottom by 2. Remember, you can divide a fraction by anything you want as long as you do it to the top and to the bottom. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the answer to this is 1/4. Now, in truth, 2/8, which is what we calculated first, is really exactly the same amount of pizza, for instance, as 1/4. So they're both the correct answer, but when you work a test, when you work a problem, you always want to simplify the answer. So when you do anything with fractions, when you get to the answer, you want to check and see if it's simplified, and then simplify it after that point. All right, so then on the next problem, what if we have 5/6 and we're subtracting from that 1/6? Oh, again, we look and see, do we have a common denominator? In this case, we do. So we just keep it in our answer. And then we look at the numerator, 5 and 1, and we're starting with this, so 5 minus 1 is 4. Now we could circle this, but then we look and see, is this simplified? And we notice right away that I can divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. And when I do that, I'm going to end up getting 4 divided by 2 is 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So the answer you would circle is 2/3. It represents the same thing that 4/6 represents, but it just looks a little simpler, so we always do that when we solve our problems. All right, the next problem, what if we had 9/10 and we're subtracting from that 4/10? Like this. So same story again, we're just checking to see, do we have a common denominator? And we do, so we carry 10 in the answer, and we subtract the numerators. 9 minus 4 gives us 5, right? So we check and see, is this fully simplified? Now you may, almost always when you try to simplify fractions, you try to divide by 2 first. In this case, we can't divide both of these by 2. We can't do that. But we notice right away that we can divide this by 5, and we can also divide this by 5. So remember, you can divide by anything you like as long as you do it in the top and the bottom. So this will be 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so you get 1/2. This makes sense that 1/2 of a pizza is the same as 5 out of 10 pieces of the pizza. They represent the same thing. They just look a little simpler when you do the simplification like that. So 1/2 is what you would get. And then the final problem we're going to do here is 7/12 minus 5/12. Right, we're going to do that. We'll check to see, do we have a common denominator? And we do. It's 12. And then for the numerators, we do 7 minus 5, which we can do in our head and say that that's 2. So we could circle that, but then we say, hey, can we simplify this anymore? And we immediately see that I can divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So the answer you get is 1/6. Now 1/6 of a pie represents the same amount of stuff as 2/12 of a pie, but I think you'd agree this looks simpler. So we say it's simplified, and that's it. Now I lied a little bit. I have one more for you. I want to go ahead and work that for you. What if we have 8/12 and we're subtracting from it 4/12? All right, so we first check and see, do we have a common denominator? In this case, we have 12 on the bottom of both, so we keep it in there. That is common. And then we subtract the numerators. 8 minus 4 is 4. So we could circle that, but then we look right away. I'm going to show you something real quick. We know that we could divide the top by 4, and we can also divide the bottom by 4, because 4 will divide into both of them. But let's just say that we didn't realize that right away. Let's say that we just didn't think about 4. But we do know that we can divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, because usually when you simplify fractions, you start with 2 and see if you can divide by 2. So let's say we just forgot that we can do 4. Let's divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. What would we get? 4 divided by 2 is 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So we're ready to circle this, but then we look at this fraction and say, wait a minute, we can simplify this further. We can divide the top by 2 again And we can also divide the bottom by 2 again. Okay, so we say, all right, let's do that. Let's divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. What would we get if we do that? 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3, right? So you get 1/3 for the answer. So that's the final answer. Let me ask you for a second. What would we have gotten if we started from here